What's going on, everybody out there on the internet? My name is FearedAngel, and welcome back to some more World of Warcraft Classic. Last time we left off, we were doing, what were we doing? Oh, we got a voidling. We were getting a lot of progress done last video. But today, guys, we're going to do some tier lists. I'm not exactly sure how long it's going to take to do the tier lists. So we might do one or two today, because there's not going to be a whole lot of interesting done today in the game. It's going to be probably some mob grinding, some questing, some quest grinding going on. So I figured, you know, since we might be doing tier lists, I don't know, you guys can let me know how you feel about, like, getting my opinion, I guess, on how I perceive things in World of Warcraft. I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly World of Warcraft stuff either. I could do these on every now and again. It's not going to be every video, and I'm not going to do like a tier thing every video, obviously, like I explained in the last, I think the last video. What was I going to say? So I figured, you know, it'd be a good idea to go ahead and, you know, the first tier we should do is the expansion tier list. I don't know if I've ever really explained how I feel in general about the expansions. I might have given my opinions on expansions on their own, but as a whole, I don't think I've ever ranked them before. So I figured this would probably be a good place to start for my opinion. So the first one we got is Battle for Azeroth, the newest expansion. The current expansion for WoW. I know a lot of people are like, this is like the new one to hate currently. This is like the new WoD. But now, I don't think Battle for Azeroth is anywhere near the best expansion, or really probably not even an A tier expansion. But the expansion has been bad in the sense that some of the decisions they've made are like kind of questionable. One, the whole storyline is just, I do not like what they have done with the story for this expansion, and I like the whole Sylvanas thing. I just not interesting. One thing that doesn't get brought up a lot, but for me, I didn't like that they added it to the game, is they removed PvP servers and then they made it so you have to activate your PvP. I don't know why they would do that, make all the servers a normal server and just remove world PvP entirely. I don't know why they did that, but they did it for whatever reason. I never looked up their reasoning for that. One thing that this expansion has done good, in my opinion, is when it was first released. First off, the areas are amazing. Okay, you got to give props to Zuldazar, okay, and Kultiris. I think the areas are beautiful. It's just a shame that because of how world quests are played. Now, I personally like world quests over dailies. I don't like dailies at all. I think world quests are basically dailies, but they make you actually travel the area instead of going to the exact same quest every day. I think world quests are a lot more interactive and just better overall if you're going to do some sort of daily content that you need to like grind for. I think world quests need to stay, and they kind of brought daily quests back with Mechagon and those areas, and Najdatar. They brought those back, and I just don't like dailies, man. I am not a daily guy. I much prefer world quest over dailies, because I remember I have done way too many dailies in my lifetime, man, and I don't need to be doing any more. That's another thing, is Najdatar. Najdatar was really cool. I like Najdatar a lot. Mechagon, not so much. Not a big fan of Mechagon. I'm not too happy about what they did with the gnomes. As for like general content, the Heart of Azeroth I think they should have. I don't know. They should have either kept artifacts or just not have done another grind, sort of like a artifact, an artifact grind again. Like repeated that basically as a necklace. I've never liked having to farm up something to level up, like an item. And the thing about the heart is it's so important to level up. Like if you want to stay at the peak of gearing and damage and the meters, you pretty much have to keep it max level, which I think the max level right now is 70, I believe. Yeah, it's 70. Couple things I did like is a lot of the dungeons. The dungeons are really cool. Like they can't, after you grind Mythic Plus a billion times like I have, I've gotten like, I'm sure the gear rating's higher now, but I'm like at 450 on my main. It's just Druid. He's my main. He's at like item level 450, which is really, it's almost max, but I think 8.3. I don't remember if that's out yet because I haven't played current like in-game stuff in a while. I've kind of taken a break. I'm kind of waiting for the next expansion at this point. The dungeons are really cool and unique, and I like King's Rest, even though I like King's Rest basic, but not King's Rest like Mythic Plus, because it can get long and there's like some encounters that just aren't really fun. A lot of the raids are really cool. Eternal Palace is like one of the best raids they've released in a while. That has been one of my favorites. I loved Eternal Palace. That is amazing. I don't like what they've done with N'Zoth. If you don't know, N'Zoth is like my favorite old god out of all the old gods, and he's been one of the most, like, one of my favorite things, and like my curiosity, because he's always been kind of a secret in the background, manipulating things, and the way they've gone about N'Zoth has completely just kind of killed it for me. What other raids did we have? Battle for I'm going to mispronounce that, Dazlenor. I really like that raid a lot. The Jaina fight is like one of my favorite fights they've made. Like it's definitely in the top tier for raid bosses that they've done. On my server, the very first Uldir, the very first raid that I actually, when the expansion first came out, I literally was raiding every week, and we were like one of the top progressed guilds on our server on Sargeras. But I killed Gahoon on, did I do it on Mythic? Can't remember if I did it on Mythic, but I stopped at some point during that, and then I took a big break. It was very RNG based with how the gear worked, and I think that was my biggest problem with Battle of Azeroth, is with the whole Heart of Azeroth essences. Man, I've lost all my lingo because I haven't played a whole lot of it much lately, so it's kind of got on my head. But the essences and the powers, the Heart of Azeroth powers, that was my biggest problem with this expansion, is especially at the beginning. It's kind of gotten better now, but at the beginning of the expansion, you could get a really good piece. Like, I was maining a warlock at the beginning of the expansion, and there was one other warlock in the guild I was with, and we had the exact same gear score. Like, we weren't far off from each other, but if you didn't get the right piece of Azerite gear that had the right powers that you needed, runes or whatever the hell they're called, you would just fall behind. It didn't matter if you knew your class better, you knew you were better at, your mechanical skills were better than them. It didn't matter about that. It was, did you get a piece of gear, because it wasn't a guaranteed drop that you'd get a piece of gear at all. There was a 1 week when we were doing heroic Uldir that a piece of gear did not drop off a single boss for me for an entire week. So 1 week was just gone of no progression for me, so I fell behind. Then, so something has to drop. Then, does it Titanforge? Does it upgrade? If not, okay, you're behind again. If somebody else gets luckier than you, so you're competing with your other, And then, does it upgrade? But did you also get the right piece of gear that had the right runes? Might be a chest, but is it better than this blue? You might have got a good purple epic, but does it have better rune or powers than this blue piece from a world quest? And that was really the biggest thing for me, was how the gearing system has changed over the years. And really, all I really needed to say was that. And for that reason alone, I'm gonna go C. I'm not gonna go full D tier, but it definitely, yeah, because there are aspects I like the end game. I think it has some of the best end game in a long time. But man, the gearing thing alone has at least lowered it from a B to a C for me personally. But that should be my longest rant of the expansions, because that one's current. But Cataclysm, where should we put Cataclysm? All right, we're gonna put Cataclysm at A. Now, that one might be a little confusing for a lot of people, because I know Cataclysm isn't like loved, but the kind of feeling I had while playing when Cataclysm came out, it was like amazing. You had Deathwing going through zones, blowing people on, lighting zones on fire, and then you reworked all of the vanilla content. And at the time, I was like leveling. So you got to remember that this is for me, like my personal list. This isn't, you don't have to agree with it. But at the time, at Cataclysm, around the Wrath of the Lich King time, I was trying to hit max level on like all classes, which I did end up doing on Cataclysm, mind you. Yeah, it used to take a little longer to level up back then. And Cataclysm kind of rejuvenated my love for leveling, because it reworked all the zones, and the new zones were awesome. I loved the in-game Blackwing Descent. The first fight, the worm, what's that, Magmaw? What's his name? Something Maw. He's a fire worm. That fight was fun as hell for me, and I don't know why. It wasn't a very unique fight. It was kind of just a DPS race fight, but now we get a lot cooler looking fights, but that worm was they kind of upgraded how graphics works. Maybe not the graphic system, but they were getting better at designing areas, and they weren't so bland looking anymore, and they were kind of updated like visually for the 2010 era. But and then a lot of the zones like Vashj'ir, there's no reason to ever go there anymore. And I know a lot of people don't like Vashj'ir, but Vashj'ir is my favorite zone in the entire game. Being underwater and the music and like just the atmosphere of being underwater in this deep, just mysterious underwater like zone. It was just the first time you ever went there when it was released, man. I can't describe how I felt. Freaking go underwater in that ship, and it was awesome. I freaking loved it, dude. Freaking loved it. So. And then there were, honestly, it might even have to go a B though, and I'm not sure. I'm kind of torn between an A and a B, because things that Cataclysm did do wrong is after the release, and the first tier of raids, Hour of Twilight and Blackwing Descent, which again, amazing raids. Those two raids are some of my favorites still. Sadly, we can't run them like they used to, because you one-shot everything now. But and then Firelands, another beautiful raid, amazing in-game there. But after Firelands, that's where you come to a problem where after Firelands was released, we had they really dropped the ball with like the Deathwing raid. Like the Deathwing fight itself was cool, but the way they reused most of the bosses in the Deathwing raid, the final raid of the expansion, were reused skins, and they weren't super interesting fights, and the scenery wasn't very good. So I think for that alone, I actually need to bring it down to maybe a B. The first year of the expansion was fantastic, but after that, they just fell into the ground. So actually, we're going to put it at a B, now that I think about it. Legion! Now, Legion, I didn't get to, is probably my least played expansion, and not because I think it's bad or anything, but because I had a lot going on in my personal life during that time. I was having a baby, I had to get a job and everything, and I had to quit kind of YouTube, and I didn't really have time to I really didn't have time to play much anymore. So I played for the first, I'd say 4 months, like religiously, and then I found out, hey, you're having a baby, and so World of Warcraft really wasn't on my mind. But from what I did get to play, probably about, I'd say about the first 7 months I got to play, Legion was amazing. Like, come on, every class, like the class feeling was brought back from Legion. It was gone for a while. They kind of got rid of class fantasy, and then Legion kind of revamped it and brought it back into the spotlight. And when you played a class, you felt like if you were playing a shaman, you felt like a freaking shaman in Legion, man. The artifact weapons were cool. The quest lines were cool. The freaking raids were badass. The questing was badass. Come on, dude. S tier. I honestly, I didn't get to play all the 2 years of Legion. But from what Legion had in it and all the content it had in it and just the amount of stuff they added and you could do and the time and effort they put into that expansion, hopefully they can continue putting out expansions like Legion. But Legion, in my humble opinion, S tier. S tier, man. They added Mythic Plus too. Mythic Plus, I think, is one of the best things they've added. It keeps you coming back. I don't know. It's a fun. I think Mythic Plus is a very fun thing to do when you're bored. If you want to keep playing, I don't know. Personally, I like Mythic Plus. I know Mythic Plus is kind of a controversial thing, but it's just, yeah. Legion was amazing. Mist of Pandaria. Now, this might come as a shock to you guys, but Mist of Pandaria is my favorite expansion in the game. I know. I've been playing since vanilla, so I'm not some, like, you know, new player that just, like, came around near vanilla. No, I was playing a long time. But Mist of Pandaria, which is funny because when Mist of Pandaria was released, I wasn't playing the game. I even told, like, Dylan, you guys might know Dylan. I told him that I'm never playing WoW again. Mist of Pandaria, that's stupid, blah, blah, blah. And I waited, like, 3 months. I think I waited 3 months to buy Mist of Pandaria and play it, and I bought it, played it, and it was awesome. Mist of Pandaria is, bar none, my favorite expansion they added. Now, let me go over a couple reasons. One, when each class felt very unique. Again, like Legion, class fantasy is a big thing for me because I like playing all the classes and I like feeling like I like how the class, how classes play is a big thing for me. And Mist of Pandaria is some of the best times I had in that game. Like there was Paladin. My Paladin Let's Play was my favorite Let's Play I have ever done in World of Warcraft. And the reason is, if you ever watch it, there's like 340 videos of it, so I don't expect anybody to actually watch the whole thing. But if you watch the whole thing, I was having so much fun on that. I might not sound like it because I was commentating and whatnot, but I was having so much fun on that Let's Play because the Paladin back in Mist of Pandaria had the amount of survivability and self-healing and damage a protection Paladin could do was nuts. I soloed by myself every dungeon up to, I think, Mists. I might have even attempted Mist. I don't remember where I stopped. I'm pretty sure I did do some Cataclysm ones. Yeah, I soloed like every dungeon, and I did like all the raids while I was leveling, and like it was a great time. And I never had so much fun on a class than Miss the Pandaria Paladin. That was it was broken, I'll be honest, but man, was it brokenly fun. And don't get me started on just the whole like monk tranquil feeling that the zones had and the game brought. The areas were beautiful and tranquil, and I really felt immersed in the zones. And the Pandarin, I love Pandarin. It's like my favorite race in the game. I love the fat little Pandarins, and they're like, oh, slow down. I love that feeling. I love that whole oriental feeling. It's very awesome. The raids for Mr. Pandaria were awesome. Siege of Orgrimmar, even though I know a lot of people's big thing about it, one of their biggest complaints, I guess, was how Siege of Orgrimmar was for the last raid for a year. It was the final raid, and it was released within the first year, and that's pretty much all there was to do for a whole year. But I think the raid really was not good enough, obviously, to last a year, but it was good enough to last for at least a couple of those months. And there was other thing about Mr. Pandaria. Before that, really, there was only raids and dungeons to do for your end game. It was either PvP, raids, or dungeons. And dungeons weren't even really that in game. They were kind of like you do heroic until you can raid, and so it was raid and those are kind of all the things you could do at max level, really, to play and kind of do. And then Mr. Pandaria came out, and it's kind of flipped it on its head, because every other expansion, those were the three things you could really do. Then Mr. Pandaria comes, and it adds a whole bunch of other stuff. You get another difficulty added, which didn't come out till the Siege of Orgrimmar, but Mythic. You had scenarios were added for another little thing you could do, little side thing that you could queue up for. They added challenge mode dungeons. I don't remember if anybody remembers challenge mode, because they gotten rid of it, sadly, since they added Mythic Plus. But challenge mode you could unlock special mounts and armor that you can't get in the game anymore for doing that. Yeah. It had some of the best, and Mr. Pandaria, again, all the classes were fun to play, so I wanted to play, because all the classes were so fun, I wanted to go and play I wanted to keep maining every class. It was hard to choose from, which class I wanted to play. So I had a hard time choosing a main in that expansion, because it was so fun to play. Every class was fun to play, okay? And that's really all I freaking want in an expansion, dang it. And then Timeless Isle. Timeless Isle, I think, is one of the best, because every expansion kind of it adds a zone for the final kind of for something you to do, I guess. They had Throne of Thunder. Throne of Thunder was probably very close to being one of the best raids of all time. Throne of Thunder. That was the jam. That was the freaking jam, dude. The Timeless Isle was a fun little thing to do. There was just so much you could do in that game, and there's so many reasons to play, and it was a good time. I had a very good time on the expansion. Burning Crusade. I'm gonna go A on Burning Crusade. First expansion. I played at the tail end of Vanilla, so I was there for Burning Crusade. I was a pretty big noob in Burning Crusade, not gonna lie, so I didn't really get to experience a lot of the in-game stuff. I think I did some heroic dungeons, and I think I did Magtheridon. I did Magtheridon. I did some Karazhan. Karazhan's awesome. Come on, that's again up there with best raids in the game. And then I think that might have been it. No, there's one other one. What did I do? Was it Serpent Shrine or Serpent Shine? I hate Serpent Shine. I'm not gonna be honest. That raid alone might drag this down a tier. Yeah. Now, I will say going through the portal for the very first time is an experience that you can't get back. Like, oh, man. Going through that portal for the first time. Was awesome. I like a lot of the zones. Nagran, still one of my favorite zones. Blade Edge Mountain, I didn't like Blade Edge Mountain a lot. Nether Storm looked cool, but it wasn't really very fun to play in. A lot of the dungeons, I don't like a lot of the dungeons in Burning Crusade, mainly because I think I've done them a billion times, and when they released, there was some I didn't like. I didn't like a lot of the Zenger Marsh ones. Pretty much any of the Zenger Marsh ones. Didn't really like Zenger Marsh as an area. Didn't really like Shadow Moon Valley. I liked Hellfire Peninsula and Nagrand. Didn't really like Terracar Forest either. I don't really like a lot of the zones in Burning Crusade now that I think about it. But I'll keep it in an A tier. It was alright. The PvP, though, was fun. PvP, there was a lot of... Again, I can't really put it up there that much because I didn't really have... Besides, obviously, when it first came out, can't really say I had really, like, an outstanding time playing Burning Crusade myself. And Vanilla, people should know where I stand with Vanilla. Obviously, I should put it higher mainly because for nostalgic reasons, it's the first time you play the game, and it's like, you can't get that back, and rose-tinted glasses and all that. But when it comes down to it, in my humble opinion, Vanilla, what we're playing now, Classic, it is so outdated if you actually play it. There's so many things that it's not even difficult, it's just tedious. There's a difference between tedious and difficult. Like, if you take current content, like raids in Mythic Plus, you have to react so fast and you have to be on point and on your game to react to, like, debuffs and dodging zones and skill shots from bosses, and you have to be on your game. Back then, it wasn't so much... There was no mechanics to dodge, really. Each raid boss and boss had, like, one mechanic, and the rest of the time was, should I use my rank 1 spell or use my rank 2 spell, or am I gonna run out of mana? It's like... There's a difference between things being difficult and tedious. There's a big difference there, and it's kind of up to you to decide what is tedious and what is difficult, I guess. I don't know if I got my point across with what makes an expansion like. I hear all the time people say that Classic is hard. Classic is hard. It's not hard. It's not a hard game. It's tedious. Like, sitting here spamming one ability and just getting auto-attacked and I'm about to die because things are undertuned or overtuned, which is what the big problem was with Classic, is things weren't balanced right because they didn't really have anything to go off of. It was the first expansion of the release. They didn't have, they only had really EverQuest back then to kind of gauge like what's balanced and what works and what doesn't. So there was a lot of experimenting going on, a lot of unbalanced stuff happening. So, again, tedious, difficult, they mean different things. So me personally, I think World of Warcraft Classic isn't difficult, it's tedious. And I think that is what people need to differentiate between the two, because people seem to get those confused with this expansion, but that's just me. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Tell me why I'm wrong, I guess. Warlords. Worst expansion. I don't even have to say it. Sad thing about Warlords is I was very hyped for Warlords. I still like Garrisons a lot. I like having my own place that I see nobody else, and I can have everything in one area. And I like the semi, you can't decorate it a whole lot, but the decorations and the followers and stuff, I really liked all that, and I wish they'd bring that back into like some sort of like house making. A lot of MMOs now have some sort of house like hub that you can decorate and stuff, and Garrison's about as close as we got, and it didn't quite hit the spot. So, again, I was very hyped for this expansion. I feel like if they would have gone through with all they had planned with Warlords instead of basically stopping developing halfway through and then just focusing on Legion, which, you know, worked out in the end because Legion was amazing, but they worked on it for like the first year, if that, 8 months, and we're like, okay, we're not developing any more on this expansion. We're going to go straight to the next one for whatever reason. I have no idea why they did that, but they did it, and it really showed the whole, you know, they made a big point about the orcs, you know, time traveling. The orcs are the problem. The orcs are the problem. And they'd never used the orcs. It was not that expansion at all. It was that expansion for like the first tier of raid, and then after that it was Burning Legion stuff, and it was just, oh god. Like, it was really cool at the start, really cool, going through those zones, going through the portal again. It was really amazing. I liked how, I will say that one thing Warlords did right is how they went about questing. They kind of switched it up. Questing wasn't so grindy feeling anymore. You could loot stuff to get XP. You could kill rares to get XP. You could do like side objectives to do XP. There were so many different ways you could level in that expansion that I feel like that was a good direction that they went, and they've stayed that way, which is good. But you can't really make up for the fact that it was obvious they stopped caring about that expansion, and they kind of just released it and were like, okay, screw off. And it was very half-assed, and it showed. And Wrath of the Lich King, I'm gonna put in an S. I had a really freaking good time in Wrath of the Lich King. Northrend, one of my favorite zones. I love snow in video games and like snowy mountainy areas, and Wrath of the Lich King's filled with it. Freaking added the Death Knight, the first hero class. Come on, the Lich King, the undead. You can't go wrong with undead and the Lich King, man. You can't go wrong. You can't go wrong. Ulduar, one of the best raids ever released. Icecrown Citadel, one of the best freaking raids. I had so much fun. And the thing about Wrath of the Lich King that a lot of people might look over is it made a lot of the content very accessible to everybody. It didn't have Raid Finder. It didn't need Raid Finder. Okay, I have no problem with Raid Finder. I know a lot of people have problems with Raid Finder. I don't have a problem with Raid Finder. But back then, you could do all the content. If you really tried, you could do all the content. You could, you know, the heroics were super freaking easy. Okay, let's not forget that. Wrath of the Lich King heroic dungeons, you spammed them to get your tokens. What are they called? Your badges. Badges of justice badges, or whatever. Can't quite remember what they are called. To get the next token, etc., etc. But that expansion made it so you could actually go in to these in-game raids and like somewhat finish them. See, now a lot of the time, Mythic, you can't do Mythic just with any group, which, you know, keep it that way. I'm not saying remove it that, you know, I'm saying how they have it now is the best way. Make Mythic really hard for people who really want hard content. But Wrath of the Lich King, if you really wanted to, you could do like the raids and stuff if you really tried. And that's what I liked about it. It was very accessible to everybody. Hardcore players and, you know, not so hardcore players. And that's what I really liked about it. That's also the first expansion I kind of did go hardcore because of how, how easy, not easy it was, but how accessible it was to actually get stuff done in that expansion. And that's kind of when I actually started taking the game, not serious isn't the word, but getting a lot more, what's the word, hardcore with it, I guess, is the word to use. Yeah, I think that's the word to use. I loved the quest. I loved Again, I love the zones. I loved all the dungeons, even though they were extremely, extremely easy, and like you could just speed run them. Again, pretty much all the raids were astounding. I mean, they brought back Naxxramas, but I mean, that's not really a bad thing at all. I think, what else did Wrath of the Lich King add? Oh, the PvP, man. Those were the best seasons. Wrath of the Lich King seasons were freaking awesome. Freaking great. Especially if you were playing a rogue. Rogue back then was freaking broken. Absolutely bonkers. But that is my list, guys. I'm sure there's a lot of disagreements. I know my opinion on expansions for my opinion on a lot of stuff in World of Warcraft is pretty different from a lot of people, and I'm quite aware of that. And you know what? I'm my own person, and I'm, you know, you can argue with me if you want. I don't know if I'll really argue back, but that is probably one of the more unique looking tier list I've seen. I've seen some people do an expansion tier list, and I mean, there's some things that are the same. Like Warlords, I think, is everybody's like most hated expansion. It really was not a very good one. But yes, there it is. Now you guys know my kind of opinions on each expansion. But I'm getting into here. I've been recording for a little bit now. Probably going way over the limit. But, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. And I'll see you guys on the next episode of Classic. Peace off.
Thanks for watching, everybody. If you liked the video, leave a like. And make sure to share it around the internet and worldwide. You can check out my Patreon, links in the description and on the screen now. Don't forget to come by our Discord and say hello to everybody. And last but not least, make sure to follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Peace off.